So once you have your corporation, you've got your company formed, you need to then turn that company into a business. So forming a company, having the legal entity, doesn't really mean anything from a business perspective. You have to go out and you have to make money, you have to sell a product, you have to find customers, you have to build the product, you have to market the product. There's a lot of work that goes into actually turning the entity into a business. This isn't class 8, this is class 6. I just reordered things a little bit because just to accommodate the virtual model better. We've kind of gone through this a few times already. The standard process is that you come up with an idea, you build some version of the idea, so usually it's some sort of prototype or like a beta, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit. You find investors who are interested in you based on this. You incorporate, which we've done already, and then you raise money, and then you grow the business, and you kind of raise money and grow the business in cycles. So we'll talk more about raising money soon, but first I want to talk about how do you actually grow the business. So this is a quote from Peter Thiel. He says, "The stories will be different, but they take the same form. Find a small target market, become the best in class in the world at serving it, take over immediately adjacent markets, widen the aperture of what you're doing, and capture more and more. Once the operation is quite large, some combination of network effects, technology, scale advantages, or even brand should make it very hard for others to follow. That is the recipe for building valuable businesses. Probably every single tech company ever has fit some version of this pattern." So you find a small target market. This is textbook go-to-market strategy or business formation. So there's a book called Crossing the Chasm. If you guys are interested in reading marketing books, this is kind of like the textbook that they make you read in graduate business schools. And so in Crossing the Chasm, they talk about finding your beachhead market. So the analogy is drawn from World War II and storming Normandy. And the way that happened is they found like the tiniest little wedge, and they broke in through there, and then they expanded and took over France. So you want to find the smallest target market to serve, and there are a few reasons for going after the smallest target market. When you're a startup, you can only serve a certain amount of people. It's really hard to serve a large customer base. Oftentimes there's a lot of benefit in going after very specific users. So, you can build specifically for them. So you can kind of go after like a niche audience. This makes it easier to market. Like you can speak more specifically to that audience. But then two, you can build specifically for them in a way where they enjoy the product more. So my classic example for this is Facebook. Facebook was originally only built for Harvard students. And there were a lot of things that this afforded Facebook. So first of all, they weren't selling the product to grandma. They were selling the product to a bunch of college students. And there's a lot that you can assume about college students. So for example, they're technically savvy. They all know how to use web browsers. So when Facebook launched, they didn't have to worry about like putting together user guides for like how to use Facebook for grandmas, because there were no grandmas using it. They were selling only to Harvard. So they had, a very easy time marketing. They weren't trying to market to the whole country. They were only marketing to Harvard students. So lots of efficiencies there. You become the best in the world at serving that target market. You take over that tiny little target market, and then you take over immediately adjacent markets. You take over the markets around it. So in the Facebook example, after Facebook took over Harvard, they started going after some of the other Ivy Leagues like Columbia and Princeton and Yale. So those are adjacent markets. They're markets that sit close by to Harvard. And then you just keep doing that. So you widen the scope of your activities and capture more and more. So in the Facebook example, again, they took over all the Ivy Leagues, and then they went to some of the West Coast schools. So like the UC schools, like UCLA and UC Berkeley, Stanford, USC, and then they started going after the very big state schools in the middle of the country, and then they went after all colleges, and then eventually they just opened, they flipped the switch and they opened up Facebook to the public. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Facebook for a while used to be you needed to have a .edu email address in order to register. So as they're doing this, they're building up their network effects, their technology, their scale advantages in their brand, making it harder for others to compete. And there are tons of examples of this. I'll go over another one. So Tesla's now one of the most, I don't know if it's the most valuable companies in the world, but Elon Musk is one of the richest people in the world, I guess. But anyway, Tesla's growing like crazy. Tesla didn't start by trying to go after the mass market. They started with a very niche car, which was the Tesla Roadster. So they focused very narrow. The Tesla Roadster, as you can see, this is like a sports car. And it was designed for like a very specific audience. So it was about $250,000, I believe. It had a very low range. So maybe, 120, 150 miles, something along those lines. And so it was a very expensive car that didn't, electric vehicle that didn't go very far. And I don't think the performance was like incredible, but it appealed to a certain niche of people, which is rich people who want to be environmentally friendly and who don't want to drive a Prius. So, at the time, the most popular electric vehicle wasn't even full electric, but it was like the Prius hybrid, right? So the Prius doesn't use gas if you drive it within certain speed ranges or at certain levels of acceleration. And they're super dorky cars. No offense to anyone who might have a Prius. But, nobody's buying Priuses because they look cool and sexy. The types of people who are buying Teslas, Leonardo DiCaprio, who's, very big on saving the environment in global warming and picking up supermodels, was one of the early customers of the Tesla, Roadster. So again, going after a very specific niche. Not a whole lot of people can afford $250,000 cars. If you can afford a $250,000 car, you're probably going to go for something that's got better performance. You can get very, very nice sports cars or luxury, sedans at the same price. One interesting thing about the Roadster is Tesla, again, was super focused on what they were building. So they didn't even build the chassis of the car or the body of the car. All they built was the battery. So this is the body for a Lotus. So it's a different car company entirely. They just like licensed the body, and all they did is build in the battery and I forget what it's called, but the thing that connects to the wheels. So the electric vehicle part, that's all they built. They got better at building out the battery technology. They started to build a network of charging stations. And over time, they expanded into adjacent markets. So their second vehicle was the Tesla Model S. So the Model S, not a sports car. So, the Roadster only has 2 seats. The Model S has 4 seats. So maybe it's a little bit more appealing to people with families. But it's still an expensive car. I think base price when it came out, it was like $150,000. The Model S came out. They've improved the battery technology at this point. So the distance that the car can travel is a lot further. And the design is more appealing to a broader set of people. So now it's not just famous actors who are trying to bag supermodels. Maybe now a respectable professional, maybe a wealthy attorney or a wealthy venture capitalist can afford a Model S. And they can take their whole family with them, not just their supermodel girlfriend. So started with a niche market, expanded to an adjacent market. They grew the total pool of people who could buy these cars or who would find these cars appealing. Notice they're still not going after the mass market. The third vehicle they put out, so is the Model X. The Model X is a luxury SUV. So again, an adjacent market. appeals to somebody entirely different. This is going to appeal to people with families who are going to take the dog and the kids to soccer practice in a game of dog versus kid soccer. So this is definitely like a family vehicle. It's more expensive, I think, than the Model S. So, didn't expand as far as affordability, but definitely expanded as far as use cases. So now they have a broader set of uses. People who, a little sedan is not enough. They need some sort of like family SUV, and they want a luxury family SUV. Their car after that is the Model 3. So Model 3 is now your more affordable car. So I think starting these are like $40K. This is no longer in the realm of rich people, like, wealthy people. This is something that, maybe a middle class family and up can afford. I think you can get these used for as low as like $30K now. At this point, they've dramatically improved the battery life. So again, now your like standard consumer is going to be more comfortable with it because you don't have to worry about being stranded in the middle of nowhere without battery. They've also greatly expanded the network of chargers. So I mean, you can stop at a Whole Foods in El Paso and get your car charged very quickly at one of their rapid charging stations. I think they have them at Rudy's too, which is super random. But they've made the car more appealing to a larger set of people. And as they were building, they improved the technology, so the battery technology got better. They started doing their own car designs, right? So the Roadster, they didn't have their own car designs. They built the design team who can design cars. And they improved their manufacturing facilities and production capabilities so that they could make more of these cars to serve the mass market. So again, starting with a niche market and then kind of expanding outward from there. Tesla is not just a car company anymore, however. They've been working on developing battery technology, so expanding to adjacent markets outside of cars. So, even within cars, that's like one market. Then there's a separate market that's adjacent. If you're building electric vehicles, then you've gotten really good at dealing with energy. So they started selling battery packs. You can buy a Tesla battery pack, put it in your house. This is really good for people who have solar panels. So solar panels produce electricity only during the day because they rely on the sun. The sun is only out during the day. Fun fact. And so if you have solar panels on your house and you're generating a bunch of electricity, but you're not using it, there's this question of like, what happens to all the electricity? And it gets like pumped back into the grid or whatever, and maybe you can get paid for it. But maybe you just want to store it so you can use it at night. So that's what this Tesla battery does. It's essentially the batteries that like live in their cars. You can buy one for your house. Even if you don't have solar panels, technically you can just charge the battery throughout the day. And one of the ideas is you can use your stored energy during peak hours. So if you know how electric bills work, they'll go up when a lot of people are using electricity, and they'll go down when nobody is. Well, if you charge your battery during the down hours, then you're not using energy during peak hours, which is valuable. Or maybe if you live in San Francisco and you lose power frequently, these batteries can be valuable for you. So they're in the energy business now, adjacent to cars. And as part of their expansion into the energy business, they acquired a company called SolarCity, which was partially owned by Elon Musk, which produces solar panel technology. So now Tesla is not just a car company, it's an energy company, including clean electric energy. You have solar panels, you can charge your Tesla battery, and then use your Tesla battery to charge your Tesla car. The things on the roof, those aren't roof tiles, those are solar panels. So this roof here that looks like cool red tile, all of these are just solar panels. They're stupid expensive. So again, really only appealing to a certain segment of the market. But the idea is if, the rich, energy conscious market buys this, again, starting with a niche market, they'll be able to iterate, improve the technology, reduce the cost, and expand outward within the solar panel market. So doing the exact same thing all over again. Actually, this would have been a good bit to put in, but I don't know if you guys remember, we talked about building a company is like, it looks like from the outside like one of these, just like a one big curve that kind of goes up. But really, it's a series of smaller curves that kind of join together. So as you build and expand on one market, you eventually capture that entire market. You have to jump into another larger market or an adjacent market in order to keep that growth going, and you just do that like forever. So what does it look like when you're just getting started? So this is just kind of relevant for understanding how startups work. Breaking into the market, usually the way that it works is that you build some sort of demo. So if it's a software company, you might have like a very basic version of your product. Maybe it's just a prototype. Sometimes people just have wireframes. So it's not even like a functioning app. They just want to show how it works. And then usually what people do is they go talk to potential customers to get feedback on the product. For the demo, maybe you're building hardware and it's like cheap hardware prototype. There's a company called Boosted. I think they went out of business, but they were making like electric skateboards, and these were kind of the precursor to the electric scooters that you see everywhere. And they literally just had like a battery taped to the bottom of a skateboard powering the wheels. Some janky thing like that. You take this demo or the prototype and then you go talk to users. Even though it's not done, you go get feedback from people to see, are you building the right things? Are you solving the problems that they want to solve in the way that you want to solve it for them? Based on this feedback, you go back, you build a little bit more, and you build like an alpha. So the alpha is like the first working version of your product. Again, you take your alpha, you go back to the same users, more users, get user feedback, figure out, is this what you want? Do you not want this? What do you care about? What do you not care about? You use that feedback, you integrate it into your product again, and you build your beta. Usually this is when companies launch, they call it like their beta. And this is just the Greek letters, I guess. They go alpha, beta, and then for some reason beta became the like standard for when you launch to like a small audience. So if you remember, Gmail was in beta for like 10 years or something like that or more. And so you might launch to your small target market. Maybe your small target market is college students at your college. Maybe it's people in a specific demographic in your city. Maybe it's people who are hobbyists in a particular industry. And then, as you start to gain traction, you might do like some sort of full scale launch, or you might just slowly grow based on this like small market. You focus on capturing that small market, winning that, and then moving to adjacent markets. So if you can do this successfully, then your next job is to grow and scale your company. So you don't want just 5 customers or 10 customers or 20 customers. You want hundreds of thousands to millions of customers. If you're building like a product that sells to other businesses, you don't want like 2 business customers, you'd want 10, you want hundreds or thousands. I guess it depends on how expensive your product is. Notch, my previous company, we were selling like $200,000 annual contracts or more, even more, but on the low side. So, even just getting a dozen of these or so early on was, very, very influential in helping our business grow. But now, I'm not there anymore. They're probably going from dozens to hundreds, and maybe that's their focus. So there's an important concept that people talk about in startup land, which is called product market fit. So in order to scale, you need to have a product that fits into the market, or you need to have a market that really wants your product. So you might hear me throw this around as we're talking about different stages of company growth. But product market fit, usually it's like hard to define, but it's essentially like, it when you see it. It's like porn. It's like at some point you identify that enough people in the market want your product, and the market is big enough, you've built the right thing. So the reason this is so important is you can build a product that absolutely nobody wants, or you can build a product that only a small market wants, but it's not going to support large scalable growth. Or sometimes it goes the other way. You identify a market that needs a product, and you try building it for them, and it might take you a while to like figure out how to build the right product for that market. There's really no wrong way to go, in building your company. Maybe you identify the market first, maybe you identify the product first. But at some point, the two have to meet if you want to grow your business. So yeah, I mean, product market fit, you've identified a market, and then you've produced a product that people in the market will not only use, but they'll pay for. Sorry, I gotta drink tea, my throat hurts. So one very important element of this kind of growing and scaling is not just having a market, so a segment of people that will buy your product, and not just having a product that people will use. It's, another very important element is having, sorry, I'm like stutter brain. Another very important element is having monetization. So being able to make money off of the product that you're selling into this market. So you want to be able to capture the value from this product market fit. So oftentimes what I've seen is people will build these like amazing products and they have no idea what their revenue model is going to be from day one. And the answer, the default answer you always hear is like, oh, we'll just sell ads. It's very difficult to make money off ads. You need like an insane amount of traffic. So that's not always a great solution. So you should be thinking about how you're going to make money from day one. And that's maybe sounds stupid, but a lot of people don't. They build products without thinking about how they're going to charge, what's the price tolerance in the market. And so you'll often see people who've got, products that people love and adore, and they're not making enough money. So a classic one, I don't know if you guys ever use Evernote. There's a company that made this like note-taking product, and they gave away like huge chunks of it for free. Oh, another relevant example, sorry. So Evernote couldn't make money or not enough money, and now the company's really struggling. Also, I think they have just like a bad engineering team because the product just doesn't work anymore. I used to love Evernote, and they broke my heart, and I'm trying to move on. Toxic relationships sometimes are hard to end. Another product that went through this is Strava. So if any of you are into cycling or running, Strava is an app that tracks those things. And Strava was essentially giving away like the bulk of the product away for free. And I guess they realized that they needed to make more money. And so they started focusing on monetizing really late, and they actually took away a bunch of the free features and started making them paid features. And customers didn't like that. And I don't know if they bounced back from it, but there were rumors that they were struggling for several months after that. But I think COVID actually might have given them like a good bump. So maybe they're on the right track again. So you shouldn't just assume that the revenue model is going to get sorted out. That should be a part of building a product from the beginning in the early stages that you have, the early conversations that you have with customers. Okay, so Marc Andreessen, founder of Andreessen Horowitz, founder of Netscape, he says, whenever you see a successful startup, you see the one that has reached product market fit. So you've managed to build something that people want, they're buying it, they're paying for it, and your ability to serve that market is growing.